I feel like I may be repeating myself, but in opening Carnival on Monday evening, after the end of the Easter holidays, I feel it's still imperative to stress a couple of points to the general public of St. Martin, especially to the parents. As Minister of Education and Youth, there is still school, and I would like to remind parents that your first responsibility is to make sure that your children make the most of their education. And I got a call early Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock saying, Minister, are you sure there's school this morning? The buses are running empty. And I was like, I really hope every child didn't go to the jump up. And school is back on. School is still on for this week. And I'm asking parents, especially during this time, this is the last term, some are in their last preparations before exams, make sure that you stress the importance of your children attending school. There were quite some young people in the village last night. I must say it is one of the events that is supported. It's a teen show as well. And this is something we will have to address in the planning and preparation, I believe, for the following years. Government has not really been involved in that. But I believe this year we've made great strides in sitting together with the Carnival Development Foundation, with the other stakeholders, and I think in the years to come, schedules will be a little more in sync with our schools, vacations, etc., whereby the youth will be able to enjoy the activities planned for them without running the risk of messing up their school and education. So to all the parents out there, yes, it is a time for fun and fetting, but everything in its time, everything in its place, and you as parents must execute your parental responsibilities to make sure your children are safe, to make sure that they are well taken care of, and if they are out, that they are supervised. I did notice also, again, a very big turnout with the youngsters at the jump-ups. I know that although there are laws in place that regulate these things, the manpower isn't there, and therefore we are a bit reluctant to really put that out there. But I am thinking that the more parents that know, the more vigilant they will be, and the more discipline they will exercise in disciplining their children. Actually, the law states that children under 15 should not be in openbare danspartijen, which includes jump-ups. So actually it's not allowed, and I think if more parents are aware of this, of course we know there are not enough police on the road to pick up every child under 15 or to go and question each one, but as a parent you now have to take the decision to keep your children out of activities not intended for them. I can remember being a youngster and standing on the sidelines, and when a certain time reached, you had to go because you had school the next morning. And so we as parents have to understand that we might have to miss a fete or two if we have young children. That's just the reality of it, and everything in its time and place. Live today, have fun today, and live tomorrow to experience it when you are ready. Also, the awareness of drugs and alcohol during this time. Some may feel it doesn't have an effect, awareness programs don't have an effect, but I believe information is power, and so therefore I implore parents to be aware of the different types of drugs and drinks that your children are imbibing in. As adults, look at the examples we are setting for our children. Yes, this is a time for fun and fetting, but really can we expect children do what they see and not necessarily what you say? So, I mean, that's not something new. We all were children once, and experimenting is like a part of growing up. So I would like to implore all booth holders to maintain the rules and regulations and not selling alcohol to underaged youngsters. Require an ID to be able to do so. I'm asking adults, do not facilitate the young people by buying it for them. Their brains are still growing and developing, and alcohol and drugs are known to have a negative effect on their development. So I am asking, in the interest of our young people, that we all as a community remain vigilant, and that parents, of course, take that first responsibility. I'd like to also say congratulations to the winners of last night, the teen and senior carnival queens. I must say that this morning, I was unable to stay for the ending, but I did see most of the show, I think 90% up until the evening wear segment. I also visited the debate that they had earlier this year, and I could see who the front runners would be. And I'm glad to see that intelligence and beauty scored the points along with performance. There was a great amount of talent on the stage last night, and as government, I'm very proud to say that we continue to grow in this area, and as we continue to promote these types of positive acts, and a lot of the messages sent out last night were very positive ones, that they be resounding in our minds, hearts, and lives for the rest of the year as well. So congratulations to Ms. Shanice Powell and Ms. Shakaina Pompier Arundel for taking the crowns and many of the sachets last night. All of you young ladies last night did an excellent job. Congratulations. You are winners for having stepped on that stage. It takes lots of courage, discipline, determination, and I know lots and lots of hard work and a great team. And this teaches you about how you're going to move forward in life, that you do need a great team and great preparation in order to succeed. So much success in that, and much success in the weeks to come as we go on and have a safe and happy carnival. I cannot stop on the topic of carnival without mentioning again that this is not the time to be settling old beefs. I've heard many of in the truancy officers and inspectorate in dealing with certain cases that they've been called to the schools to deal with. Students have blatantly said in front of their own parents, which is quite alarming to me, as well as school management and the inspectorate, oh, that's all right, you can suspend me today, but I'll deal with it in carnival. So this is the mentality I believe that we have to strive to change. This is not the place, not the time. This is something that is promoted to the world. Is this the story that we want to be spread about St. Martin, that it's a place of lawlessness? No, I don't think so. I think it's a minority of people who look to do these types of things, and they can mar the beauty, they can mar the market value of Carnival as one of our main cultural festivals for this year, for the entire fiscal year, and can serve as a damper on the entire festivities. So I implore you to find other ways to settle your disputes. Words help. They do. Use your words is something I've always said as a teacher. Sit down and discuss the problem. You can usually find a solution. And if worse come to worse, just stay out of each other's way. That's the best way for us to maintain peace on this island. And so as adults, I hope that we are modeling that same behavior for our young people. We do know that alcohol takes away some of our inhibitions and control. So while enjoying, do enjoy it responsibly. With that being said, I would like to also thank all the sponsors, the corporate as well as individual sponsors who are assisting all of the competitors to be able to take part in Carnival. Government has also stepped up a little higher to the plate this year in assisting, especially with the cultural contributions to the Queen shows, to the Calypso competition, as well as to the parades. We would like to promote the cultural aspects of Carnival and St. Martin, the St. Martin-ness of it, and continue to attract tourists and our locals to enjoy fun in a responsible manner. Also, to update you on education matters, the Leonard Connors School students are in the process of moving back to their campus. Much to my, I must say, Andrew wouldn't get an opportunity to ask that today because I'm happy to say that they are in the process. The 4th, 5th, and 6th graders are already in, and the last of them will be moving in today to be able to start tomorrow. So I would like to thank all who made that possible, and to thank the parents, teachers, staff, management, all concerned for their patience in us being able to do this. And as anyone who followed the parliamentary discussions yesterday would know that many of the other upgrades that we have planned are in peril, you can say. So we will have to figure out a way creatively, and maybe Minister of Finance and the rest of the Council of Ministers will assist us in coming up with ways to bring about the necessary upgrades that are necessary to have our infrastructure for education where it needs to be sooner rather than later.
It's Carnival time again, and here are a few tips you need to remember.
Keep your children close to you at all times and don't allow them to become separated from you. Pay attention to persons walking in front and behind you, especially in crowded places favorable for pickpockets. When returning to your vehicle or your home, have your keys in your hands ready to open the door.
This public service announcement was brought to you by the Police Force of St. Martin and the Department of Communication.
This week, I just recently returned from a visit to Holland. The purpose for the visit was to discuss the developments with the hospital, the fact that the hospital project is now back on track. We are, again, looking at exploring the possibility of financial support from Holland. The reason being, although we're accessing funds locally to begin the project, fact is that if we can access funds directly via Holland, because of the lower interest rate and because of a different payment terms, this would result in a savings operationally for the new hospital of between 3 to 5 million guilders a year. And I believe that anything we can do to save money operationally is money that can be better spent on health care rather than paying into financing charges. So this is a discussion that began last year already. Since the discussions, we've gotten a business report, or APS has requested an evaluation of the business plan. That has come out and I think is fairly positive. So we had a number of points to update the Dutch government in terms of how we're progressing with the hospital. As a matter of fact, prior to leaving, had conversations with the CFT where their advice is critical in that approval process, and again, they're supportive of the project, and as a matter of fact, in their recommendation to the Kingdom Council of Ministers, will make a recommendation that the funding for the hospital project be considered on top of or outside of the normal lending procedures, especially since it's a special one-off project. The other purpose for going was to speak about legislative assistance. Fact is that the ministry has many projects underway at the same time regarding national health insurance, national health reform, changes to our civil code, labor market. And so we simply need more legislative capacity in order to move the projects that we're working on. And so one of the discussion points is about how can we tap into some of the resources that may be available in terms of legislative assistance. Met with a number of individuals, including Minister Plasterk, Secretary General Richard van Zwol, as well as met with the incoming chairman of the CFT, Mr. Raymond Grades, members of the Second Chamber, André Bosman, Member of Parliament, Joba van den Berg. And I would say that all of our legislations, while not, all of our discussions, while not conclusive, I think they were extremely positive and very candid. The other topic I'd like to talk about is about, it's a little bit off subject, but is about the media, about the role of journalism in our democracy. Media, as you know, has a very critical role in a proper functioning democracy. Media is there to ensure that our people have access to accurate, factual, balanced, and unbiased information, because that information is critical in their entire decision-making process. So without infringing on anyone's freedom of speech, I'd like to make a recommendation to the industry to look at establishing guidelines. So for example, if you look at the Netherlands Press Council internally has established their own guidelines, and there's some points in here that I think are worth mentioning, and they've adopted these from international standards and made them their own. But in there, for example, a journalist would avoid one-sided or biased reporting, hearing both sides of the argument. So when publishing accusations, a journalist will investigate whether there's a sound basis for them. If reasonably possible, the journalist will hear who are disqualified as a result of a publication, even if their role is marginal. The accused will have ample opportunity to respond to the accusations, preferably in the same publication without being subject to any unreasonable time pressure. And as well, if a journalist who appears to have reported incorrectly or incompletely on a certain essential point will make a suitable and generous rectification as soon as possible of their own initiative. And I see one of our journalists here making some faces and saying, where are we going with this? What's the reason for it? Well, while I was in Holland, I was very disturbed to read an article about how Minister Lee committed $200,000 to Sunwing while attending CHTA Marketplace. Fact is, every minister knows that they are not allowed to commit over 50,000 guilders without an approval process. And certainly as a minister filling in for a minister of tourism, I wouldn't even venture to execute that authority for a ministry that I'm representing on a few days basis. So how is business in CHTA Marketplace conducted? This is an event where buyers and suppliers, this means that tourist offices, hotels, for example, meet together with tour operators and they discuss plans for the future. They discuss possible marketing cooperative efforts. We had discussions with Expedia, with TripAdvisor, with Sunwing, with a number of different tour operators. And by the way, in all of those meetings, I was accompanied by a representative of the tourist office or from the cabinet of the minister. And so in those meetings, and we are dealing with professionals who understand that you need a signature on a contract. And so this article ran despite the fact that there's not one email from myself to Sunwing, there's not one signed contract, there's nothing that would indicate that any sort of a commitment has been made to Sunwing. Was I supportive of marketing support for Sunwing? Of course. Sunwing brings direct flights from Canada. They bring passengers into St. Martin. As a matter of fact, IATA would estimate the financial contribution per flight is about $13 million in direct and indirect spending. So would spending money to support direct air access and charter flights into our destination be something that, in principle, I would support? Of course. Were there discussions about media? Also, for example, many of the tour operator companies, the way they function is they have their in-house media. They'll develop media campaigns that will include sending out emails to their database. In my opinion, those are things that, while they may have a value, when you put a dollar value to it, it doesn't cost them anything. So in the discussions, for example, was if you're going to spend or ask for marketing contributions, which they were also going to match, that fund would be spent, that money would be spent on hard advertising. So in other words, in newspapers, online, something that generated real exposure for the destination and not in-house marketing activities. So were there discussions about what a future plan would look like? Sure. Were there discussions about the frustrations of dealing with St. Martin and how money approvals always took so long and how money was always received late and means that the money was spent inefficiently? Sure. How would we spend that money more effectively? How would we make sure that St. Martin is getting the bang for its buck that it deserves? Sure. That's the job of a minister, is to go there and try and negotiate terms that are in the best interests of the country. But to say that I committed the country knowing full well what the authorities are vested in me and what the understanding was in terms of my visit to the Bahamas, I find that the article is exactly biased and unbalanced. As a matter of fact, I have an email from one of the representatives from Sunwing who saw the article, and I will quote, "I'm writing you in regards to the article that was published in the SMN News. Firstly, we're deeply disturbed that a confidential email is misquoted and misrepresented, and secondly, that it be brought up in the media." Goes on to say, we understood that you would be supportive of our request if it met the criteria of the tourist office. So always with the understanding that whatever discussions took place there would go back to the tourist office, be converted into a proposal and into a contract that would eventually need to be formalized. We did not believe that it would be your purview to approve funding for us on the spot. So I don't know how much more I can do to counteract, and it's a simple communications to say, look, what is your side of this story? It would have yielded a much more balanced report. And I find that this is unfair. And that's why I ask the journalists, the media, to consider, again, not imposing, no gag orders, right? This is simply a discussion about how do we ensure that journalists and the media are providing quality, unbiased, balanced information to our public so that they can make decisions correctly. Thank you very much.
It's Carnival time again, and here are a few tips you need to remember.
Before entering your vehicle, check the front and rear seats for anyone that may be hiding there. Lock doors immediately after entering. Ask your neighbor to keep a watchful eye out for you. Drinking and driving is a danger to everyone. If you choose to drink, don't drive.
This public service announcement was brought to you by the Police Force of St. Martin and the Department of Communication.
Minister Emmanuel, can you give me a status of the SCDF? A couple of weeks ago, I wrote about this, that you have asked certain members of the board to resign. And then can you make some comments about the explosive letter that was published and all the information in there regarding the Vidanova funds and the homes you plan to build?
Which one do you want answer first?
Give me them how you like.
Yes,
Keeping
well,
in mind that that was 2 questions.
there's actually 3.
Thank you, Minister.
Well, concerning Villanova, they will be here in May. They will be in St. Martin in May to give a full rundown. I received an email from them today stating that they will be signing an agreement and going over all the paperwork with the landowner and the contracts with the developer and stuff like that. I think that part of it is for them to explain how they're going to move forward with it. When I was in Curacao last, we came out and it was a done deal. Everything was set and is in motion concerning Villanova and the houses that are supposed to be built, the 167 homes that are supposed to be built in the Dawn Beach area. I don't know if that answer suffices enough, but that's as far as it goes right now with the project with Villanova. They're in discussions right now with the landowner and the developer, and they sent me a message this morning saying that that's the trajectory that they are on right now, finalizing that agreement. Concerning the explosive letter, that's just what it is for me, an explosive letter, and there's nothing much I can comment on it. There's no name to it. There's no, that's just what it is, an explosive letter. And again, concerning what Minister Lee said a while ago, I think journalists and media houses has a role to play to give factual information and accurate information, because I can go and dissect that whole article and I can tell you maybe 99% of the information is absolutely not true. But is it something that I want to get into? No, because I am moving forward and staying focused with what I told the people of St. Martin and where I'm going with this project, and that's not a distraction to me one bit. And the other one was concerning the St. Martin Housing Development Foundation. You know, I said it before that there's a fundamental problem, in my opinion, in the way the management is functioning at the St. Martin Housing Foundation. I met a gentleman this morning, and he was telling me, Christopher, in the next 2 days will be a year since I paid down to purchase a home. In the next 2 days will make a year. He hasn't moved into the home as yet, and all they're telling him is that a letter's at the minister's cabinet to sign. And I was troubled by it because I'm trying to figure out what letter are they talking about? What letter are they talking about? So in reference, they took the gentleman's money, $8,000. He paid on the home. The banks are calling him. And I'm talking about in the next 2 days, which means I was last year, April 21st it was. And here we are today in April 2017. He hasn't moved into the home as yet. So I send him up to the staff to meet, and we are trying to figure out what are they talking about? What letter are they talking about? Come to realize, yes, they did send a letter, which was from since last year. June, they sent a letter, which reached the cabinet in March of this year for a rendering, a change of purpose. Why? Because the land in which they built the homes were for apartments, and they went and they built standalone homes. So you need a change of purpose, because the land is designated only for apartments, and now you change it for standalone homes. And yes, the letter was there, but we had no knowledge of what it's for, because it came in last month, something that was sent from last year. But what I'm looking at is the manner in which you treat people, because you can't go and build on property without getting all your permits first. If you knew that you can't build standalone homes on the designated property, why did you go and build it before getting the change of purpose? That's how it works. So you took the money, build the home, have the gentleman waiting a whole year to move in to a home. And he can't because he hasn't received, or you haven't received, the change of purpose from apartments to a standalone homes. And those are some of the problems and some of the issues that I'm having in the manner in which this foundation is being managed. I've had discussions with a few of the board members, and they have indicated that they will make their position available, and I'm giving them time to do that.
Thank you very much, Minister, for those answers. Cedric, do I have my other question?
Go right ahead.
Okay, Minister Gibson, can you tell us what is the status of the Pearl of China, and with the restriction now that suddenly surfaced in the deed, can that be fixed?
Everything could be fixed if there's goodwill and cooperation. The issue is that the deed of the land only allows a limited amount of construction of units, while the plans of Pearl of China was to build more units than the deed allowed. So clearly parties have to get together to figure this out and to negotiate some kind of arrangement to see if the Pearl and China can get the number of units that they desire.
Thank you very much for your questions in this round, Bibi. Andrew Dick, the Daily Herald. Good morning. You have the floor.
Good morning to all ministers. Minister Lee, concerning the Labor Day celebration, if anything, are there any plans from the ministry with that concern? I haven't heard anything from you, and me first is just around the corner.
Thanks for the question. Last year we worked together with the Chamber of Unions, and they handled all of the organization of the Labor Day, and that worked well. I do know that there are plans for some events, but they're handling all the organization. They've done a spectacular job with it last year, and so I don't see why you change what's already working.